Greetings, my friends. Welcome back to some neck and shoulder Qigong. As usual, it might be nice to begin with putting a little bit of liniment or cream or oil or whatever medicinal that you have to help loosen up your neck and shoulders. Feels nice and cool, this version here. And perhaps we can do a little bit of extra massage as well. A lot of different methods, and we've talked about a number of various machines and tools to help you soften the neck and shoulders. To make sure you make use of as many as you need in order to help you release more quickly. There's a lot of ways to potentiate and to speed up your healing process, and so you might as well use as many as are helpful. And as well, let's settle into some comfortable basic standing position. Nice and soft, just a few minutes of standing. And of course, if you are finding yourself here as part of this series for the first time, welcome. You are jumping into the middle of a 100-day series. I think this is the day 15 of 100. And so you'd probably do better to start back at the beginning, watch some introductory videos. I have a number of videos that describe in detail each of these movements that we go through, as well as the method of releasing, because how you do it is just as important as what you're doing, maybe even more important. So please do check those out in order if you can, and then come back and join us so that you don't feel too lost. Of course, you're welcome to follow along as best you can. For the rest of us, emptying your neck, allowing the head to release upward. Xu Ling Ding Jin. Song Jian Chen Zhou. Soften your shoulders. Allow your elbows to sink. Even your hands continuously softening. Kong Xiang Da Bei. Empty your chest of any tension. Allow your upper back to release. Everything softens down. Take your time. As you soften your back, allow your hips and tailbone to sink, your belly to soften, your glutes to relax. Sorry, it's easy for me to switch over into thinking of this series as in Chinese. Softening your thighs, all around your knees and your lower legs. Letting go of your feet and your toes. And of course, as well, before doing this set, I highly recommend, if your body can handle it, to spend longer than this doing this basic standing position, slowly letting your body disentangle itself. 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. We have a whole series taking you through that if you'd like to practice that first. And very often you'll find that that is another way to expedite this process of healing. But of course, everybody's different, so you have to take your time. I don't mean to give the sense that we should be rushing through this process. We simply want to give our bodies the best chances they have to heal. Hands gently floating up to cover the navel. Awareness sinking deep to the palms. And gently spiraling outward. We've been introducing the idea of the sinew channels, one of the layers of the body's energetic anatomy. It's a pretty superficial one, dealing with the skin and the surfaces of the body that tend to have to deal with the outside world, where this protective quality needs to be especially strong. They tend to follow the basic channels, the primary channels and meridians of Chinese medicine. I prefer the word channels to meridians. Jingluo in Chinese. They follow those channels, but tend to be a bit wider and closer to the surface of the body, depending on how you think of it, because it also does run through the intestines and such. And sliding around, warming the lower back, the tailbone, spending a little bit of extra energy warming the tailbone. It's good to have your skin against skin if you can. I just don't do it for the camera. This will help to release your neck as well. Warming the Mingmen, just opposite the navel. Up and down, massaging, keeping your shoulders soft. And then releasing the sides of the neck. Taking your time. As we practice, I'll just continually drop little bits of information about the sinew channels. And over the next collection of lessons, you'll have a better and better idea of how they are in the body, how they work, how we work with them, just as we did with the primary channels during the 100-day self-massage series. Left and right, yin yang, 左右阴阳. Letting go. And it's this kind of letting go, this deep softness, this dropping open, like your arms are warm taffy, lengthening. This practice here, along with the basic standing posture, is one of those that should make it into your day-to-day experience. If you're standing in line at the store, you are gently, you don't have to make it this big. I make it a little larger for the camera. You can just soften down one side is light, soften down the other side is light. You can notice how very little movement's going on, and so it won't look too strange. Letting go, and letting go. And then if you want to, when you're in public, especially if you're wearing a snake and turtle shirt, snake softening its sides, people will come over and either throw you out or ask you what you're doing, and then you can tell them, snake and turtle Qigong. You should go check it out. It's pretty good. Good for the spine. Closing when you're done. Let's do a little bit of hip release. I'm putting my hands here to make it easy to see the movement all the way around. You can place your fingertips in this space with a tight bunch of tissues of sinew that comes up and attaches to the bone here. Both directions. Speaking of muscle, sinew, and bone in the fingertips, the sinew channels, of course, they're named that, Xingqin, because of this relationship through the tendons, the ligaments, those are the sinews. The fascial system tends to follow this fascial system through the body. Relationship and attachments to the bones, the skin, and all of these tissues that deal with the outside world. And they tend to not have particular points the way the primary channels did, where we were working with specific points. The main points that we tend to think about, other than where it attaches through to joints and these collection spots for the fascial systems, are the fingertips, sometimes called the jing points, the well points, like a well in the ground for water, larger circles. So sometimes when we're working with the fingertips, like we just were, it is helping to stimulate and draw some attention to these channels. But more often, those are particularly useful when we're either lengthening the sinew channels or just working with acupuncture to help stimulate them. Fingertips and the tips of the toes. In a way, you could say those are where the channels begin, if they're said to have a beginning point. Allowing your breath to be easy. So there are a number of Qigong practices that emphasize the lengthening and the freeing up of these sinew channels, as we're calling them in English. Both directions. And you remember that one of the reasons to study these maps and to begin to understand the body in this way is because an understanding of traditional Chinese medicine gives us a different way to think about and therefore interact with the body, especially if you study traditional Taoist maps of the body. And how we think about the body, how we perceive ourselves, has a tremendous influence on how we function and move and interact. So it can be very helpful to learn these practices, not just for their practical application, but for the way that they change how we are and see ourselves. taking the time to settle and to feel soft and nourished. The practice should always feel nourishing. That's another important switch to make. If you've been exercising and thinking of movement as a kind of exhausting or a kind of hardship experience, then you want to switch over to allowing everything to be nourishing, to be softening, opening, expansive. Even if you're using up some energy to do the practice, overall you want to have more at the end of that experience, of that healing process, than you did before. If you're ever becoming weaker and weaker and weaker, you're going the wrong direction. Some green tea. Very nice. So let's do some shoulder releasing. Remember to be aware of the stabilized side as much as you are of the opening and closing circle. Remember to release the emptying hip. One leg becomes full, the other leg becomes empty, falling open, releasing the hip and the knee, the ankle, the foot. Also making certain that as you circle back, for instance, that you're not leaning back. Let's see if I can show this. I'm not doing this. My back stays open as I circle around, all the way around. This stays full, both directions. Crown of the head continues to release upward. All of those same principles we've been cultivating throughout all of these lessons. That's why I like it when people follow not just this 100-day sequence, but the full Qigong sequence that I'm putting out. Because slowly we build these foundational building blocks, these aspects of our practice that have to be there for anything else to work, including the ability to basically relax your mind. Again, not super deeply, just enough to take the edge off. It's very important. Remember, as you're circling here, it's similar. You want a stable location. If I'm just turning my body all over the place, it doesn't allow much movement through here and in the back. But if instead this center line is more or less stable so that I can move around it, I'm exaggerating a little bit here. It's okay to have a little more movement than this, but you want this space more or less to stay in place so that the shoulders have an area to move to and from. The chest is getting to move a bit more. The back is becoming more free. And just like left and right, yin and yang, the feet are also changing. So as you notice in your body, as your hands open, for instance, there's a slight feeling of a stretching, a pulling taut of the tissues across your palm, for instance, or when you close, there's a lengthening across the tissues in this direction. One way of thinking about that is that you're experiencing these sinew channels. It's that quality in space, not necessarily related to the joints themselves, although the attachments to the joints. The capacity for the body to move fluidly, coherently, and in a connected way, that's an aspect of healthy sinew channel movement. And so we are setting those free as well. And again, as you follow through the series, whenever you have questions, please do feel free to put them down into the comment box below. Sharing with me, I'm happy to answer your questions, but also if you have insights or your own experience, please feel free to put them in there. Building community is one of the biggest reasons that I'm using this platform. Over time, I'm hoping to build a large group of people who are willing to be supportive and to offer insights, their own variations of practices, what's worked for them. Please do be kind, of course. And we can allow this community of practitioners to help each other and to grow. Hopefully we won't get too many trolls in the community, but there's always one or two. We just want to be able to allow people to feel safe and to heal, to feel supported, so that it's easy for them. It should be easy for all of us. Let's do a little bit of prep work for the black snake twisting around the tree. And to start, we'll release the neck a bit. Softening again, opening the front of the shoulder, the space beneath the collarbone. This looking up and then over and down opens and releases a particular space in front of the shoulder, the front of the neck, and of course the back of the neck and the shoulder. And it will be different than the next, where we are looking down and then up. Paying attention to see and to feel exactly where you are able to release deeply here. The particular benefits of this practice. and making certain, of course, that as usual, you're not collapsing your back as you look back and down. This stays full as you open the front of your body. There shouldn't be a sense of strain in the Mingmen, the point opposite the navel. Just opening the front of your body, lengthening along your spine, making room for the movement without collapsing onto your lower back. Find a way to make that happen. It's too easy to do it wrong. Feeling the differences between this and the last movement. Your chest sinking, your chest lifting, opening and expanding, releasing the space in the front. For those of you able to feel it, there's also releasing happening beneath the rib cage. Feeling into that space between the navel and the spine. Another reason we use this location, among so many reasons, to allow our awareness and our qi to collect, is because this is another central place around which the sinew channels bind and circulate as they move. They're big sheaths over the body, but they also have a spiraling component in the front and the back. And as most things do, they organize inside and outside around this space. And as we continue to practice, more and more of that organization comes to life. Because we need to move in the ways that our body is shaped. When we move in ways that our body isn't shaped, we're just becoming stagnant. We're injuring our body, and we're not allowing these natural, wholesome movements to take part. So by shaping our system around the center, we're making it possible for us to begin finding how to engage our body in more holistic and natural ways than this sort of robotic way that we've learned to move through the world. Remember that you are not compressing your upper neck. You're lengthening it in one way, lengthening it in the other. You can always do more. I'm just doing 4 until we reach day 20, and we'll do 5. But please do not cause more tension and stagnation in that area. I'm going to take my headphones off for this next series, Please continuously let go and soften. We're strengthening the area a bit, but only do it so much that it's nourishing, not exhausting. If you feel worse afterward, you've done too much and too hard. The change that I made, that I've been considering doing, the old way that I had initially learned this practice was this way. But I think that for softening the neck and shoulders, this one might be especially useful. The hands come up and the shoulder blades sink down the back. If I exaggerate, it goes this way. You can see how my shoulder's going this way, not forward. If my shoulders come forward as my hands come up, this is how most people move, and you can see why we get blocked here. But if my shoulders instead not pull back, but they rotate down so the shoulder blades sink, as my shoulder blades sink, my palms slowly turn down before they reach the level of the heart. This also keeps people from pulling too much energy up into the heart in their head. So the palms slowly turn down, the shoulders continue to sink. You notice, if I exaggerate it, they're coming down and down and down and down and down without leaning back. And then the palms turn forward in front of the face, slowly up over the head, shoulders continuing to release as much as you're able to. Again, not leaning back, hips still beneath the shoulders, Mingmen still open, not collapsed. And then we push up and down and do these practices. That's a much better way, I think, or it's more useful. And then we release this way because we spend so much of our form doing this. I think I will change it to this one. But either is okay. This is just a modification I think that will help people spend more time softening their chest and shoulders in this way. I'm always tweaking it, depending on the people that are in the class. And another variation we've been working on here. I'm just going to take this hand out of the way. This hand floats up. Shoulder continues to sink down. Keep Mingmen open and down. And down. I do it from the side. And you can see that my shoulder blade is sinking, so it's as though my hand is going behind my head, but I'm not pushing my head forward. This is just the shape of the shoulder. And you turn the waist. Turn the waist. Leading with the fingertips, with this tiger's mouth shape here. For those of you who are just enjoying the practice, later we spend some time with this circle before golden snake. You can combine these two movements as I turn, so my hand sneaks behind my back and comes up. I'm just turning my waist. This is perhaps a bit too difficult for this set, but for those of you who are finding all of this easy and want to try something different, that's a possibility, but only if it feels easy. Softening all the way down and through your body. Wait until the release reaches your feet, then the X side comes up. All the way down. A wave that travels through the body and then closing. So with that one and a number of the movements like closing, our awareness is moving down through the body in general, releasing any tight spaces in particular. For the black snake movement, our awareness is sinking down to the level of the bones as best you're able to, so deep inside the body. So for the next movement, the awareness sinks deep through the body into the ground. The same kind of release of the tension in the musculature, of course, but let your awareness settle a bit more deeply into the body. I'll take my headphones off for this set. Please remember to avoid collapsing your back, straining your neck, twisting your knees, that kind of stuff. Please be careful. Another thing interesting about the sinew channels is that they tend to relate to the more unconscious autonomic aspects of our system. The primary channels are often more influenced by our current thoughts, our disposition, our digestive process, and how it relates to the emotional flow in our body. But oftentimes there's underlying things that are just below the level of consciousness. They're not quite available to our awareness. And those are things that sit in this layer of the body that can be released through practice. And so very often, if you're intentionally helping to release and to lengthen this quality of the body, this layer of the body, sometimes you might find various kinds of emotional things coming up that have been stored for quite a long time. And those of you who did the self-massage series probably already experienced a lot of this. And so just be aware that as you are softening the body, you may find waves of emotion coming up, strange memories arising, this kind of thing, tics and oddities coming and hopefully passing away. They should always pass away pretty quickly. But just to let you know, this is why. These are things that have been stored in the tissues and they're kind of releasing through. Very often it relates to the movement of the seasons. The sinew channels they have a big cyclical, seasonal component, and that quality as well is something we'll start to experience as we practice. And again, I'll go into this in much more detail a bit at a time. I just want to give a sense of an overview so people have an idea of what we're talking about. Hopefully you're doing this in order. Let's do some prep for white snake. Remember that as your arms go down, your head is released up. Don't let your chin come forward. With one foot in front, keeping Mingmen open. Don't collapse onto your back. Your hips release. One leg releases, then the other. Your chest opens and then sinks. And as you drop forward, your head does not drop forward. Your crown of your head is released up to lengthen your spine. Just little reminders. We'll accumulate these as we practice. After a couple weeks of this, of daily practice already, you've improved quite a lot. And so making sure you give yourself the chance to develop good habits along the way, not just good information. Allowing the feeling of the center of gravity, center part of your body, to sink down rather than being held up here. Let a feeling of settling come down through your body, sinking down, letting everything drop. Lengthen outward. This is another way that we work with the sinew channels. We soften away. Don't push your hands out. Let go of everything holding your hands in so that they fall outward toward the horizon. You see everything pulling long. And then we wrap around. Everything is lengthened out, lengthening out through the hands, circling around. If you'd like, you can feel a sense of emphasis around the index and thumb and this line in the body. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But this discussion around the fingertips and how they relate. Get good at this release to the side of the body. The shoulders are always falling into the correct shape. Shoulder blades sink down. A bit of white snake, one foot in front. Remember to release your hips as you move. Remember that you're not arching your back. If anything, this opens as you lift, as you expand and rotate. Lower back is free and released, not collapsing. Eventually, this movement comes through here. So if you start to collapse onto your lower back, you'll never have the chance to free that area up. So we want to develop good habits now. Crown of the head continuously free, floating upward. Shoulder blades sinking down the back, lengthening through the arms, and as we've been talking about, all the way to the fingertips. There's a reason why, huh? It's amazing. Some freeing up for golden snake. Shoulders release outward, not back. Circling the shoulders without pinching them up toward your ears. And of course, as I've been mentioning, don't arch your back. As your shoulders release, this area opens and softens long. A sense of length all the way through your fingertips. and soft. Softness is the way that we create that length. Opening away from this side, moving toward it. Opening away. This whole hip also is stable, opens. Don't let all of this twist. Leading with your fingertips. Avoid collapsing your lower back. It stays soft and open throughout the movement. Always not collapsing. Shoulders released. And of course, leading with the fingertips. Kind of length all the way through. Softening your hands, don't tighten them up. It's too easy once we start talking about the hands to start controlling them and tightening them. Continue to soften them. You're just softening them even more. And if you have a difficulty with softening your hands, then of course I recommend that 100-day self-massage class to continually help you learn to release your hands and your wrists. It also primes you to become particularly aware of these layers in your body where the sinew channels will be found. It's almost as though there's a plan. Lower back, staying soft and open, hips released, hip released, leading with fingertips, softening all the way through, a lengthening from the shoulders out through to the fingers. A lengthening that happens because we let go. So as we progress, since we're a couple weeks in, I'm going to begin involving more movement through the waist. I tend to avoid doing it too much because it starts to look visually confusing if I'm using my dantian and making spiraling movements through my center. So I'm hoping by this point you've become comfortable and confident enough with these movements that they won't seem confusing. If they do, maybe go back and review a little bit. But just a forewarning that if you're seeing lots of movement through here, you don't have to copy that. It's not something you want to fake. It's just something that starts to develop as your dantian starts to rotate. I used to get very confused when I would see my teachers doing that and I tried to fake it. And that only caused problems for about a decade. Just let it be. Don't copy. Let's try some golden snake. Everybody's favorite. Open. Notice I'm lengthening through the fingertips. All of this falls open. And then we do the same thing from here to the feet, as though you're leading with your toes outward. Only step as wide as is comfortable, but you want that sense of lengthening through the crown of the head as well. This is stretching out through softness, this very important quality of the body that we are starting to learn about. Even here, this continues to be lengthened. We don't collapse in. You soften, and I'm just folding my elbows a bit, just to keep this out of the way. Don't collapse onto your lower back. Mingmen stays open. Again, the Mingmen is just the name of the point on the lower back that's opposite the navel. Name of the area. Leading with the fingertips. Shoulder stays soft. Crown of the head continues to lengthen. Let's do one more. Soft, fluid. All the way around. Waiting for that sense of settling, softness, quieting inside. Especially after an hour of practice. Hopefully at this point, it's a little bit easier for you to let go, to sink through. currently blistering hot in this room. Luckily, my practice has made my body more or less temperature resistant within a wider range than I historically have been able to deal with, so I'm not sweating at all, which is nice. But there's a grand heat wave outside. And it's wonderful that the more that I soften, the more that I let go and allow Qi to accumulate inside, the easier it is for my body to deal with changes, whether it's temperature or energy expenditure, as I'm about 50 years old and I have more energy than I did even when I was 20. I sleep better, I wake better. Everything is more flexible inside. My joints are more flexible. My mind more easily moves between being very quiet and active when it needs to be and very quiet. These kinds of flexings between yin and yang should become easier, more supple, not just in your joints, but in everything about your nature. And this is another quality that the sinew channels are related to. And so as we practice these methods, all of these functions start to get better. And then the deeper quality of nourishing the dantian, so that you have more qi available for these systems in your body to do their good work, that becomes more and more vital, more and more capable. You want to feel that as you practice. It's quite nice. As you're circling and you open the front of your body, do not collapse onto your lower back. Keep the Mingmen open. Just going to keep reminding you, it's too easy to start collapsing under your lower back rather than being open and flexible on your neck. One of the reasons we become stiff and inflexible is because we aren't able to move one part of the linkage in our body, and so another place takes all of the stress, and it becomes stiff and damaged. So as we open, if we keep this all-important linkage point open in this chain of movement, in a way you could say this Mingmen area is possibly the most important area, then the neck and shoulders are able to begin to release because they're no longer taking the brunt of the collapsed Mingmen space or any other linkage along the chain. Because remember, the whole body is related. Hips going forward and back a bit, just to practice this. This is such a weak space for so many people. Hips travel back. Don't think about going down, and then don't think about going up. Keep your spine free. Don't use your back. Just push your hips forward. If you're not sure if you're doing it or not, please do feel free to send me a video or visit a personal trainer or an expert, an acupuncturist, a doctor. It's pretty easy to spot when you start to lift upward instead of just push your hips forward. Highly recommend spending some time with a personal trainer if you're not sure how to do this, to develop the basic deadlift skill, which is this with added weight. Because if I was lifting something very heavy here and I just pushed my hips forward, if I'm using my lower back, I won't be able to do it. If I push my hips forward, suddenly this very heavy weight becomes much lighter because you're using strong muscles and instead of these gentle spaces, postural muscles. So now let's begin to use that with this softening and lengthening downward, only as far as feels comfortable. Releasing and releasing all the way as far as feels comfortable. You don't have to touch your feet, but you do want your awareness to continue traveling all the way down past wherever your hands stop, even if they stop at the knees. Your back is still lengthened, and your awareness sinks to the bottom of your feet in the ground, and then comes back up. Keeping your Mingmen open, even again when you are opening the front of the body. And of course, leading with your fingertips. Fingertips and toes, fingertips, fingertips, all the way down, and then even on the way up, your hands lead. Wait till your hands are on the way up, then your hips come forward. And then let's try this as well, just to practice rounding the lower back. It's as though the crown of the head wants to move toward the tip of the tailbone, but without closing and compressing the side that is not lengthening. Let's only do a couple of these because people tend to overdo them. But we do want to prep the body for this kind of lengthening along the back half, especially the lower back. This lumbar area here for people tends to always be arched, even when they're trying to come forward. So the ability to let this round out is really valuable. Now let's try some turtle drinking Qi. Oops. Pardon me. Keeping your breath even, steady. Remember that as you get to know the form, you don't need to wait for me when I'm doing explanations. If you know what you're doing, just go ahead and practice. But be sure not to do too many. We'll slowly increase the number as the weeks wear on of our practice. So your whole spine lengthens, tailbone sinks, crown of the head floats up to follow the hands, and the tailbone kind of lags behind so that there's a lengthening through the spine. And then it's as though this clear, fresh, open space of the sky washes through your body, getting free of any tension that's in your musculature, stuck spots in your joints, free all the way through to the ground. And then as though you gather up that warmth, vibrancy, and strength from the ground, flows up especially to this Mingmen point, and then forward into the center of the body that we've been consolidating to. Then we let go. Always let go between. Lengthening from your fingertips, the whole spine long, and again, gathering in this clarity, any excess thinking, stagnant emotions, they all just wash down and through, cleansed by the open sky. If these are feeling especially good, then of course feel free to keep doing them for a while. Emphasizing the sinking down portion, the becoming free, more than the gathering up. As we've been talking about, crown of the head continues to lengthen up. Don't let your chin round forward. Your shoulders stay in this lengthened position. As you swing and turn your waist, do not twist your hips. It's so easy. Everybody seems to do this. Keep your hips still, turn your navel so that the space between the navel and this opposite hip lengthen away from each other. This side becoming free. It's very difficult to teach online. It's easy if I can just stand there and hold your hips. Make sure that you don't arch your back. Again, the tendency to collapse the Mingmen will make your neck stiffer, make it more difficult for you to soften your shoulders, or maybe nearly impossible. And of course, in relationship to the sinew channel discussion, notice your fingertips lengthening away from the body, leading with your hands rather than kind of turning your waist and letting your arms trail behind. You're softening through the fingertips, lengthening between the fingertips and the elbow, fingertips and the shoulder, fingertips and the upper spine, crown of the head and the fingertips. You can say the same thing for the toes and Mingmen, but that can be more difficult to notice. Settling your body so the arms fall to the sides, just like we were working on before. If you let your arms go, they just sort of swing. I'm not doing anything. This is just all of these joints being very soft all the way through. You can see the movement going all the way to my waist and my hips and my feet. It's just my body being free, hanging upward from the ground into the sky. Letting your awareness sink to your navel, deep to the navel, and as well to the bones of your body. Not because you push your mind inside, but because you let your mind sink down, like dropping a stone into the water. If this is still difficult for you, even just to conceptualize, then maybe spend more time with the quiet sitting practices and that 100-day seated and standing meditation series, practicing letting go of the mind, letting go of the body. And especially noticing the nourishment of the bones and the neck, shoulders, the arms to the fingertips. Eventually, from practice, there will be such a nourishment of the surface of the body, channels, sinew channels, continuously generating this vital chi through the body, that it kind of overflows, like being so well rested that your body has extra energy to heal. It overflows and soaks into the tissues, it soaks into the bones eventually. Your marrow fills, even the feeling around the bones and the tissues changes. Oh, and I'll give you an update that I got from my doctor after doing that 100-day series of self-massage, but let me finish this first. Thanks, everybody. For those of you interested in listening to my medical update, you're welcome to stick around. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Keep up the good work. Enjoy your practice. And so the update, which I thought might be interesting to some people, especially those of you who followed through the 100-day self-massage period, it was a very chatty style of class that was designed that way to make it easier for people who feel intimidated by practice and overwhelmed by trying something so difficult. And both Mel and I had noticed that our skin was becoming thicker in a certain way, not thick in the sense of hardened, in a healthy sense, like the juiciness of the tissue, rather than becoming thin, was becoming more dense, and not in a body fat way. It's hard to describe. And I had wondered, because I was noticing it in all these interesting places in my body that normally don't collect body fat. And I had wondered if it was just a temporary effect, if this was happening because I was putting so much of my awareness into that layer beneath the skin. And then I got a medical update. And it was just a normal medical exam. It's you're becoming half a century old, let's get you into the doctor kind of exam. And the nurse, the anesthetist, and the doctor all told me that separately, not at once, that I was the healthiest and happiest person they'd ever had, which was a really nice thing to hear. and it wasn't arranged. It was just, they didn't know who I was. And the nurse said something really interesting, who was, she had to put the IV in my arm. And she had said that as she was trying to insert it, that my skin was very interesting. My skin was soft and had good circulation, but that it was very thick and it was actually difficult to get the needle through. And this is what she did. She was a phlebotomist. She put needles in people for a living. And she said, your skin is really interesting and resistant to the needle. So she had to work extra hard to do it. And that was my experience. And I've heard that from massage therapists and different people since then who are working with me. And it's just this really interesting side effect of the practice that I've heard about forever, this changing of the density of the body, this fullness that happens to the surface of the body and then deep. And I've heard from people that, when your channels become full, you can feel somebody, and you can feel when that's happening from doing these practices. But this was the first I had it confirmed by actual doctors, which I thought was pretty fun. And, being around Master Chikung, and I highly recommend people go check him out, the TaoistStudiesInstitute.org. You can study with him. He's fantastic. He's my teacher. He runs the monastery where I live. And I'm constantly, by being around him every day, hearing about all of these medical surprises that he's going through. Doctors are saying, you're in your 70s, you're not on any meds, you're perfectly healthy. He's more flexible and stronger than 20-year-olds that I know. And, I'll see him get a wound from just getting his skin injured and being amazed. After decades in the clinic, I know how fast people tend to heal wounds. And he has healed wounds, I promise this is true, faster than any person I've ever seen, like shockingly so. I'd see him weeks before I expected the wound to disappear and the skin was perfectly smooth. And so I notice these things because I'm used to being around people healing. And so this effect is real. It's quite amazing. And I'm a skeptical person by nature, so I pay attention. And then hearing it about myself as well, my own poor level practice from doctors, it's just a wonderful confirmation. And so I'm hoping that as you continue to practice, you'll start to notice these surprisingly beneficial changes as well. And I won't say that these things happen to everybody, because probably it's just our individual health and vitality impacting our system. But just remember that I am somebody who was not necessarily born vibrant and healthy. I was born weak and sickly. I've been weak and sickly my whole life. A lot of congenital issues that got worse as I got older. And they have healed. My emotional tendencies, my mental emotional imbalances, we'll say, have healed. My body, I'm now the healthiest person that I know next to Master Chikung. And so these things are real. This stuff works. You just have to put in the time. And that I've noticed is the most difficult component for people. Consistency. You can tell people to do crazy things for a short period of time and they'll do it. But if you tell them to do far less, just be moderate, eat well, move a little, practice a little bit every day for a long period of time, that's really difficult for some people. They'd prefer to do the crazy thing for a short period of time. And so please make that adjustment. Switch to doing moderate things. Just become moderate people. Eat well, move well, breathe well, stay relatively quiet, and you will notice a difference in your health through your whole well-being. And I hope that for everybody. I hope to become an example that I can share. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoy your practice as much as I do.